Beneath Arizona's blazing desert sun lie mysteries that have stood for centuries, daring us to uncover their secrets. Montezuma Castle clings to cliffs like a city in the sky, abandoned yet perfectly preserved. The great house of Casa Grande rises from the barren desert, a massive structure whose purpose still baffles archaeologists. And deep in Canyon de Chelly, towering cliffs hide ancient dwellings, petroglyphs, and legends of spirits that linger to this day. Who built these monuments and why? What stories remain hidden in stone and sand? Join me as we uncover the untold mysteries. Let's explore! Montezuma Castle, Arizona's Cliff Palace mystery. High in the rugged desert cliffs of Arizona, where the Verde Valley stretches wide under the blazing sun, stands a monument that feels as if it belongs to another world. It is called Montezuma Castle. Though that name is misleading, this towering cliffside dwelling has nothing to do with the Aztec emperor Montezuma. When settlers first discovered the site in the 19th century, they assumed it must have been built by the Aztecs and gave it that name. In reality, it was created centuries earlier by the Sinagua people, a culture that thrived in central Arizona long before European contact. Montezuma Castle is not a castle in the medieval sense. It is a cliff dwelling, a 5-story structure built directly into a massive limestone cliff. It hangs there like a miracle of stone and wood 80 feet above the ground, a city suspended between earth and sky. Even from a distance, the sight is astonishing. Square windows dot the cliff face. Doorways open into the rock itself. The structure seems impossible, a piece of architecture that defies both time and gravity. Yet this was once home to dozens of people, families who cooked, slept, raised children, and lived their daily lives in the safety of the cliffs. The Sinagua were farmers, hunters, and traders. Their name, later given by the Spanish, literally means without water, because they survived in harsh lands with limited rainfall. Around the year 1050 CE, they settled in the Verde Valley, where rivers provided just enough water to support crops. They planted corn, beans, squash, and cotton. They hunted deer and rabbits and gathered wild plants. But they also looked upward. Instead of living only in ground-level villages, they began constructing homes in the cliffs. Montezuma Castle became their masterpiece. Built with stone, mud, and wooden beams, it contained around 20 rooms. These were arranged like apartments, stacked on top of one another, with families occupying different sections of the cliff. Every day, life here required determination. To reach their homes, the Sinagua climbed long wooden ladders leaning against the cliff face. Imagine carrying baskets of corn, heavy jars of water, or bundles of firewood up these precarious ladders. Imagine mothers climbing with children strapped to their backs, or hunters returning with game. Living in the sky meant constant effort, but it also meant protection. From their high perch, the Sinagua could see across the valley, spotting approaching visitors or enemies long before they arrived. The cliffs offered safety from floods and animals, and the alcove itself provided natural shelter from sun and rain. The design was not only defensive, but also practical. Archaeologists have found evidence of daily life still preserved inside. Fire pits once glowed with cooking flames. Clay pots held food and water. Grinding stones were used to prepare corn into flour. The walls were plastered and smoothed, and the rooms were divided for sleeping, storage, and work. Some rooms were large enough for families, while others were small chambers, perhaps used for keeping precious food safe. Each doorway opened into another part of the community, and ladders inside allowed movement between floors. For the Sinagua, this was not just survival, it was civilization. But then comes the mystery. Around the early 1400s, after centuries of living in Montezuma Castle, the Sinagua suddenly abandoned it. The structure was left behind, empty and silent. No written records explain why. Archaeologists can only guess. Some believe a long drought made farming impossible. Others think conflict with neighboring tribes forced the Sinagua to move. Still others suggest that disease or social changes caused them to leave. What is certain is that the people who built Montezuma Castle vanished from it, leaving the walls to stand as a ghostly reminder of a once thriving community. The site itself raises more questions than it answers. How did the Sinagua transport the heavy beams of wood needed for construction, when trees suitable for such work grew miles away? How did they manage to build so high, carefully placing stones and mortar on sheer cliffs without modern scaffolding? And perhaps most puzzling of all, why did they decide to risk their lives daily for a home in the cliffs, when the valley below offered easier living? Some experts believe the location had spiritual meaning, connecting the Sinagua with the heavens. Others argue it was purely defensive, built in an age of uncertainty. There is also the possibility that we simply cannot understand the worldview of a culture separated from us by centuries. When Spanish explorers eventually passed through the region in the 16th century, Montezuma Castle was already empty. To them, it was a ruin of unknown origin. By the time American settlers arrived in the 1800s, the structure was weathered but still standing strong. They named it Montezuma Castle, unaware of its true creators. In 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt declared it one of the first national monuments in the United States, recognizing its significance and mystery. Since then, it has become one of the most visited ancient sites in the American Southwest. Standing below the cliff, modern visitors feel awe. The castle towers above, as if frozen in time, silent yet alive with memory. It invites endless questions. Who were the families who looked out from those windows? What stories did they tell? What ceremonies did they hold? What dreams did they have as they gazed across the valley? Did they know their home would one day be abandoned, left as a puzzle for strangers centuries later? Montezuma Castle is more than just an archaeological site. It is a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring mystery of human history. The Sinagua built with no written language, no advanced tools, yet they created something that has outlasted empires. The castle has stood for nearly 1,000 years, surviving storms, earthquakes, and the passing of generations. It remains one of the best preserved cliff dwellings in North America, a monument not just of stone, but of human will. Some believe the secrets of Montezuma Castle are still hidden within its walls. Perhaps careful excavation might reveal more artifacts, more clues about why the Sinagua left. Perhaps oral traditions of descendant tribes hold answers we have not fully understood. Or perhaps the truth will always remain beyond our grasp, a story lost to time. That's what makes Montezuma Castle so powerful. It is not just history, it is mystery carved into stone. When you stand in the Verde Valley, the desert heat shimmering, the river winding below, and you look up to see Montezuma Castle clinging to the cliffs, you cannot help but feel small. You realize that human beings, even in the harshest environments, have always sought not only to survive, but to create, to build, and to leave their mark on the world. The Sinagua succeeded in that. Though they vanished, their legacy endures, challenging us to ask questions and search for answers. Montezuma Castle remains a riddle written in rock, daring us to climb higher, to imagine deeper, and to remember that the past is never as distant as it seems. Casa Grande ruins, the great house mystery of Arizona. In the heart of the Arizona desert, where the sun burns white across endless horizons and the soil cracks with thirst, there rises a building that has defied centuries of wind and weather. Its walls are thick, its presence commanding, its origins shrouded in silence. This is Casa Grande, The Great House, a monument left behind by a people who flourished in the desert long before modern history recorded their names. The Hohokam, as archaeologists call them, were masters of survival in one of the most unforgiving landscapes in North America. They dug canals that stretched for hundreds of miles, channeling precious water from rivers into their fields. They turned barren soil into farmland and supported thriving communities where none should have existed. And yet, the structure we call Casa Grande is unlike anything else they built, a massive four-story building that rises above the desert like a question carved in clay. Casa Grande was built more than 700 years ago, around the late 1200s or early 1300s. At its height, it stood in the center of a vast settlement, filled with smaller houses, irrigation canals, plazas, and ball courts. But the Great House itself dominates the site. Its walls were made of caliche, a natural concrete formed from desert soil, lime, and water. The Hohokam mixed and layered this material, pouring it in stages until the walls rose thick and tall. Some are more than 4 feet wide, designed to endure the harsh desert sun and monsoon rains. Even today, though battered and eroded, they still stand. That endurance is itself part of the mystery. How did a culture with no metal tools, no wheels, and no written language create such a monument of engineering? What drove them to build it in the first place? From the moment Europeans first saw Casa Grande in the late 1600s, they were astonished. Spanish explorers called it simply the Great House, marveling at its size and wondering who could have built it in such a place. By the 1800s, American settlers also stood in awe before its walls, imagining lost civilizations and forgotten empires. Scientists today know the Hohokam were responsible, but knowing who built it is not the same as knowing why. The Great House has no written inscriptions, no clear explanation of its purpose. It stands like a riddle in the desert, its silence speaking louder than any words could. Some researchers believe Casa Grande was a ceremonial center, a place where rituals were performed to honor the gods of sun, moon, and rain. The structure's sheer size suggests it held special meaning, perhaps serving as the heart of community gatherings, feasts, and spiritual ceremonies. Others argue that it was an observatory. Holes in windows in the walls line up with the position of the sun during solstices, and possibly with the moon's cycles as well. Imagine ancient astronomers standing inside, watching beams of sunlight cut through the openings, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. In a desert where survival depended on knowing the rhythms of nature, such knowledge would have been priceless. But other theories exist. Some suggest Casa Grande was a palace for leaders, a stronghold for defense, or a storage facility for valuable goods. And still others whisper about mysteries deeper than archaeology, proposing that the Hohokam were guided by forces or knowledge long forgotten. Whatever its purpose, Casa Grande's scale and durability tell us it mattered deeply to those who built it. It was not an ordinary house. It was something greater, something worthy of the name Great House. Life around Casa Grande would have been vibrant. Thousands of people lived in the surrounding villages, farming the desert through their vast canal system. Corn, beans, squash, cotton, and agave were staples of their diet. The canals, dug with stone tools and human hands, stretched for miles. Some so well designed that parts of them are still visible today. The Hohokam were also skilled craftsmen, producing pottery, stone tools, and jewelry made from seashells brought from the distant coasts. Their trade networks reached across the Southwest, linking them to other cultures and distant lands. In many ways, they were a civilization as complex as any in the ancient world, though little is remembered of them today. And then, as with Montezuma Castle, comes the mystery of disappearance. By the 1400s, the Hohokam civilization collapsed. Their canals were abandoned. Their villages fell silent. Casa Grande, once the heart of a thriving community, stood alone in the desert, a shell of memory. Why did they leave? Drought may have drained the rivers and ruined the canals. Raids from neighboring tribes may have scattered them. Disease or social upheaval could have played a role. But no single answer explains it all. What remains is a story of brilliance followed by silence. A culture that mastered the desert and then vanished into history's shadows. Standing before Casa Grande today, you see a structure both fragile and eternal. The walls, though cracked and weathered, rise tall against the Arizona sky. To protect them, a massive steel roof was built in the early 1900s, sheltering the ruins from rain and sun. Visitors walk around its base, craning their necks upward, imagining what it once looked like in its prime. At night, when the desert cools and the stars blaze overhead, the great house seems even more mysterious. Its windows like dark eyes, watching the heavens, as if still keeping track of the movements of the cosmos. What did the Hohokam know that we do not? Were they astronomers, priests, leaders, or something beyond our understanding? Casa Grande does not give up its secrets easily. It holds them in silence, leaving us only to wonder. Some archaeologists believe that more excavation might uncover artifacts to explain its use, but others caution that disturbing the site would only erase what little is left. See now, Casa Grande remains a monument of questions, a structure that endures not because we understand it, but because we do not. There is something humbling about standing in the desert, staring at walls built by hands long gone, walls that have endured storms, earthquakes, and beyond, and centuries of neglect. The people who raised them are silent, yet their work lives on. Casa Grande is not only a mystery of the past, it is a reminder of how fragile human civilizations can be, and how even the greatest accomplishments can be swallowed by time. We walk among the ruins, searching for meaning. But perhaps the greatest meaning is that human beings have always reached for something greater than survival. The Hohokam built canals to control rivers. They built villages to raise families. And they built Casa Grande as a monument to something higher, whether knowledge, ceremony, or belief. The great house still stands because it was meant to endure. Its builders crafted it, layer by layer, with care and patience, using only the materials at hand. In its survival, it speaks of human determination. In its silence, it speaks of mystery. And in its presence, it connects us across centuries to a people whose names we may not know, but whose work still towers above the desert floor. Casa Grande is not just a ruin. It is a question, and every visitor who gazes upon it becomes part of the search for an answer. Perhaps that answer will never come. Perhaps the Hohokam wanted it that way, leaving us only the great house, standing tall against the Arizona sun, reminding us that the past is never fully lost. It waits quietly for us to keep asking. Canyon de Chelly, the Canyon of Spirits. In the vast deserts of northeastern Arizona lies a place carved not just by water and wind, but by centuries of human history and mystery. Canyon de Chelly, pronounced de Chelly, is one of the most hauntingly beautiful landscapes in the American Southwest. Its red sandstone walls rise hundreds of feet into the sky, sheer cliffs that glow crimson under the desert sun and deepen to shadow as evening falls. Within these walls are secrets, ancient dwellings, mysterious rock art, whispered legends of spirits and gods, and centuries of untold stories. To stand in Canyon de Chelly is to stand in a place where the physical and spiritual worlds seem to blur, where history refuses to die, and where mysteries linger like echoes among the stone. For thousands of years, people have lived in this canyon. Archaeologists trace human presence back nearly 5,000 years, from early hunter-gatherers who left behind fragments of tools to the ancestral Puebloans, often called the Anasazi, who built elaborate homes tucked high into the cliff faces. Later, the Hopi people called the canyon home, and after them came the Navajo, or Dene, who still live there today. Each wave of culture left behind traces of their lives. And together, they created one of the longest continuous records of human settlement anywhere in North America. And yet, despite this long history, so much about Canyon de Chelly remains a mystery. Who exactly built some of the dwellings hidden in its walls? What do the strange petroglyphs and pictographs mean? Why did some of these ancient people vanish? And what is it about this canyon that has inspired endless legends of spirits, gods, and strange forces? One of the most striking features in Canyon de Chelly is the White House ruin, named for the faded white plaster still visible on part of its upper walls. Built around 1,000 years ago by the ancestral Puebloans, it consists of a two-story structure on the canyon floor and another tucked into an alcove 50 feet above. To build such a place required not only incredible determination, but also knowledge of stone, wood, and plaster. Why construct homes so high in the cliffs? Some archaeologists say it was for defense, to protect families from enemies. Others believe it was symbolic, a way of placing their homes closer to the spirits they worshipped, or simply practical, to keep them cooler in summer and safer from floods below. Whatever the reason, the sight of these ruins, silent, empty, their walls still clinging to the rock, fills visitors with awe. And White House is only one of dozens. All along the canyon, in alcoves and ledges, you can see the remains of stone dwellings, granaries, and ceremonial kivas. Some are tiny, hidden, nearly invisible until you know where to look. Others are larger, with multiple rooms and levels. The mystery is not only how they were built, but why this canyon in particular was chosen. There are countless canyons in the Southwest, yet Canyon de Chelly became a center of life and culture for so many centuries. Perhaps the answer lies in its natural resources. The canyon floor holds fertile soil, watered by streams that still flow today. Fruit trees, corn, and beans could be grown in abundance here. Game animals moved through the area. For the ancestral Puebloans, it was a paradise carved into the desert. But others whisper that there was something more, something spiritual about this place, something that drew people to it beyond simple survival. The Navajo certainly believe this canyon is sacred. To them, Canyon de Chelly is not just a home, but a place of deep spiritual power. Legends tell of deities and spirits who shaped the canyon's walls. Spider Rock, a towering 800-foot spire rising from the canyon floor, is said to be the home of Spider Woman, one of the most important figures in Navajo mythology. According to legend, Spider Woman taught the Navajo people how to weave, passing down the skill that is still central to their culture today. But there's also a darker side to the tale. Spider Woman is said to punish misbehaving children by capturing them and taking them to the top of the spire, where they would never return. Even now, Navajo parents sometimes warn their children to behave, or Spider Woman will come for them. To outsiders, this might sound like myth or folklore, but to many Navajo, Spider Rock is alive with her presence. Visitors standing below often describe a strange energy, a feeling that the spire is more than just stone, that it watches, that it remembers. Petroglyphs carved into the canyon walls add another layer of mystery. They depict animals, hunters, abstract symbols, and figures that some say resemble star maps or celestial beings. Who carved them and what did they mean? Some archaeologists believe they were records of hunting or markers of important events. Others believe they may represent spiritual visions, shamanic journeys into other worlds. And then there are the more unusual interpretations, that some of these carvings, with their strange humanoid shapes and oversized heads, might be depictions of beings not of this earth. While mainstream science does not support the idea of ancient aliens, the carvings fuel endless speculation, especially in a canyon already filled with legends of spirits and gods. The canyon is also tied to stories of disappearance. Around the late 1200s, many of the ancestral Puebloans abandoned their homes, not just in Canyon de Chelly, but across the entire Four Corners region. This great migration is one of the enduring mysteries of the Southwest. Why did they leave? Drought is one possibility. Warfare is another. Or perhaps it was something more intangible, a shift in spiritual beliefs that led them to seek new lands. The Hopi, who are descendants of the ancestral Puebloans, say their ancestors did not vanish, but moved on, following the instructions of their deities to settle elsewhere. But when you stand among the empty ruins, it feels like abandonment. It feels like abandonment. That, Matt, is perfect in context. It feels like abandonment. Whole families gone, homes left behind, their voices silenced by time. For the Navajo, who came later, Canyon de Chelly became a stronghold. They farmed its soils, herded sheep, and built hogans along its streams. But the canyon also became a site of tragedy. In the 1860s, during the U.S. government's campaign to remove the Navajo from their homeland, troops under Colonel Kit Carson entered Canyon de Chelly, burning crops, destroying homes, and forcing families to surrender. The survivors were marched on the infamous Long Walk to Bosque Redondo, hundreds of miles away, where many died of starvation and disease. Though the Navajo eventually returned, the canyon still carries the weight of this trauma. Some say the spirits of those who died in the canyon linger, their presence felt in the winds that whistle through the walls at night. Visitors sometimes report hearing voices, cries, or drumbeats echoing through the canyon, though no one is there. And the mysteries do not end with history. Many who visit Canyon de Chelly speak of strange feelings, as if being watched. Some describe orbs of light floating among the cliffs, or shadowy figures glimpsed on ledges only to vanish when approached. Navajo guides speak of sacred places within the canyon where outsiders should not go, places where the veil between worlds is thin. Photographs taken in the canyon sometimes show unexplained shapes, blurs of light, figures that should not be there. While skeptics dismiss these as tricks of light and imagination, others believe the canyon is truly alive, that the spirits of those who lived and died here remain close. Spider Rock, in particular, is said to be a hotspot of strange activity. Hikers report dizziness, sudden chills, or feelings of dread when standing near its base. Some have even claimed to hear a woman's voice whispering in the wind. Is it just the power of suggestion, or is Spider-Woman still watching? The Navajo do not doubt. To them, the canyon is not just history, but living myth, a place where the spiritual world touches the human one. Even the name Canyon de Chelly carries layers of meaning. Derived from the Navajo word Seyi, meaning inside the rock, it was altered by Spanish explorers into De Chelly. The name itself reflects the blending of cultures, Navajo, Spanish, American, each leaving their mark on the canyon. But no matter what language is used, the canyon resists full explanation. It remains what it has always been, a place of mystery, beauty, and spirit. Imagine standing at the rim at sunrise, the canyon floor still in shadow, the cliffs glowing red as the light slowly creeps downward. You hear only the wind. the call of a raven, the distant trickle of water. And yet, you feel you are not alone. The walls rise like guardians, holding memories too old to name. Somewhere in the stone are stories we cannot read, voices we cannot hear, but we know they are there. That is the power of Canyon de Chelly. It is not just rock and ruin, it is a living story, one that refuses to end. The mystery of Canyon de Chelly is not a single puzzle to be solved, but many layers woven together. It is the mystery of the ancestral Puebloans and why they built homes in the cliffs. It is the mystery of the petroglyphs and what they were trying to say. It is the mystery of the Hopi migration, the Navajo legends, the spirits that still seem to linger. It is the mystery of survival in a harsh land, and the mystery of why some places hold such power over the human imagination. Perhaps the canyon is not meant to be solved at all. Perhaps its role is to remind us of what cannot be explained, to keep us humble before the vastness of time and spirit. When you leave Canyon de Chelly, you carry something with you. Maybe it is the memory of the towering cliffs or the silence of the ruins. Maybe it is the story of Spider-Woman or the voices you thought you heard in the wind. Or maybe it is simply a sense of wonder, the realization that the world still holds places where mystery reigns, where not everything can be reduced to science or history. Canyon de Chelly is one of those places. It is a canyon of spirits, and its secrets will outlast us all.